I did. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Northwest Community Council meeting of February 9th, 2026. With us this evening, Krista Vining. Just so you know, Krista Vining here is our clerk. Our legislative support is Alicia Wall. Our solicitor is Megan Carlson. And my name is Kathy Daigle-Gammon. I'm chair of Northwest and District 1 Waverly Fall River Musquodoboit Valley Councillor. So we'll call the meeting to order and we'll do our land acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We also recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched the part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We'll now ask for approval of the minutes of January 12th, 2026. Councillor Gillis, seconded by Councillor Young. Excuse me. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. The motion carries. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions or deletions. Madam Clerk, do we have any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Gillis. All those in favor, the order of business, and signify aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. We'll now call for a declaration of conflict of interests. Hearing none, we'll move on. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. And notice of tabled matters, there is none. Moves us to the interesting part of our evening, which is 10.1, the public hearings. Plan App 2025-01152, amendment to the land use bylaw for Beaver Bank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville to amend Appendix A1 to include PID 40306565 as access only for 505 the Lucasville Road, Lucasville. So thank you very much for joining us today at this public hearing. The process will be that we start with a staff presentation and questions of clarification from staff. Then we give the applicant an opportunity to present. After that, we go to the public hearing. Speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. And we do ask that you keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. The clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete for all speakers. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, we will call 3 times to see if there are any additional speakers. Speakers can participate in person, or if you pre-registered by the deadline, you have the option to participate using Zoom. As a reminder for those that might be watching, in order to have signed up as a Zoom speaker, the deadline was 4:30 the business day prior to the meeting. However, there is no deadline to speak in person as long as you are present in the chamber when I call for more speakers. Madam Clerk, can you confirm if any additional correspondence has been received for this public hearing since the beginning of the meeting today?
All correspondence for this matter have been circulated to the Community Council.
Thank you very much. We'll now have Jessica Harper do the staff presentation. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you and good evening. Try this again. Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of Northwest. My name is Jess Harper. I'm the Principal Planner for the Rural Policy and Applications team, and I'm here to present on Plan App 2025-01152, which is a land use bylaw text amendment for PID 40306565 located off the Lucasville Road in Lucasville. The applicant is Mode Architecture Incorporated on behalf of the property owners, has applied to amend Appendix A1 of the Beaver Bank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville Land Use Bylaw to add PID 40306565 as access only for the development on the adjacent property at 505 Lucasville Road. The image that we see here on the screen, outlined in red, is the parcel that is subject to this application here tonight. So just for a bit of site context here, the subject property to this application is located along Lucasville Road, south of Highway 101 and north of the intersection of Lucasville Road and Bryanston Road. It is important to note that the subject property is located within the African Nova Scotia community identified as Lucasville, originally known as Lucas Settlement, and a settlement established in the early 1800s. Now, over the past few years, the Lucasville community has been working with the Road to Economic Prosperity, and more recently with HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning Team, to establish a new community vision and begin the process for a planning strategy review and action planning program to respond to the needs of the community. The Lucasville Visioning Committee was established and have begun to identify a series of initiatives based on concerns and opportunities within the Lucasville community. Now, throughout this application process, I have heard from a number of residents within the Lucasville community, some beyond the scope here of this application here tonight. Staff did reach out and talk to our HRM's African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning Team to ensure that that feedback was provided to that team, as they are important feedback as that team kind of goes forward in that visioning process. A few site photos here. So the first photo is looking southwest along Lucasville Road. The second photo is kind of looking back into the site. And then the third photo here, showing a picture of the signage posted on the property, is looking northwest along Lucasville Road. So just a brief overview here of our planning policy in HRM. So kind of at our top level, if we're looking 20,000 feet kind of down onto HRM, where we have our regional plan and subdivision bylaw. These plans guide where population, growth, and the investment of services such as transit, piped water, and sewer should occur. At the next level down, our community plans, which are municipal planning strategies, outline where, how, and which types of development may occur. Some uses may only be allowed after community consultation and council approval. At kind of our more granular level, we have our land use bylaw, which is our zoning, which specifies what can be improved without going to council and without seeking feedback from the public. So here's a flow chart of the process for a land use bylaw text amendment. Tonight we are here at the public hearing stage, and following tonight there will be a 14-day appeal period to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. Now, a bit of overview on the site itself. So the property is located, partially the front portion of the property is located within the water service only boundary of HRM. The property is designated mixed use B and zone mixed use 1. Currently the site is vacant, and the enabling policy for this is P9A of the Municipal Planning Strategy for Beaverbank, Kamins Plains, and Upper Sackville, and Appendix A1 located in the Land Use Bylaw. Now, before we get into the specifics on the proposal itself, I just want to give a very brief kind of overview as to how we got here with Appendix A1 and HRM. So in August 2022, Regional Council adopted policies and regulations for shared housing and shared housing with special care. In July of 2022, Regional Council gave first reading for the region-wide amendments, and a motion was made for senior citizen housing to have this use remain in the Beaverbank, Kamins Plains, and Upper Sackville Land Use Bylaw to allow for additional time for active development projects. In May of 2023, a public hearing was held at Regional Council, where Regional Council deferred the motion to remove senior citizen housing. We then came back in September 2023, where at that time, at that public hearing, Regional Council, that public hearing was on that deferred motion. And as a result of that public hearing in September 2023, we have the approval and adoption of Appendix A1. The image here on this slide shows a screenshot of Appendix A1 that is taken from the Land Use Bylaw. The arrow does point to the property that we are talking about here tonight, where the access is for. So the property with the arrow is for the adjacent property, and we are specifically talking about the access for this property. So Appendix A1 allows for existing senior citizen housing uses that were issued a development permit prior to the first reading of the shared housing amendments that we talked about just in the previous slide. The properties in this appendix may have permits reissued up until May 23rd, 2026. So in terms of our regulations and policy here for this application, so as mentioned, Appendix A1 is located in the land use bylaw for the Beaverbank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville Plan. Appendix A1 indicates an existing senior citizen housing use that was issued a development permit for senior citizen housing prior to first reading of the appendix may only be reissued for that use until May 23rd, 2026, and should only be permitted for those 25 properties that are indicated on the appendix. And it's important to note that it will only be considered so the appendix indicates the number of units. That's a maximum number of units that may be considered for each one of those properties. In terms of policy criteria and our municipal planning strategy, our policy is P-9A. This is the policy that establishes the creation of Appendix A1 of the land use bylaw and states that these uses listed within the appendix shall be deemed to be an existing use and may continue to operate, as I mentioned, with the same number of units or less. Okay, so to get into the proposal specific to this application, so the property subject to this application, as mentioned, is PID 403-06565, and the request here tonight in front of Northwest Community Council is to add this parcel as access only for the adjacent development on 505 Lucasville Road. It is worth noting that the original application for this, the original request, for this application came in, included a request to correct an error that was in Appendix A1. The number of permitted uses was listed as 64. This was an error, and it should have been 118. There was a development permit as well as a building permit that was issued for 118 units for senior citizen housing on this property in September 2022, and then a building permit in August 2023. Unfortunately, the wrong number was mistakenly inserted into the appendix, and through staff's review, it was also identified that the access for this development was located on the adjacent parcel on the subject pit here that we're talking about, and that was also mistakenly left out of the appendix. But it was always intended, going back to September 2022, that this would be the access for this proposed development. So then, following public engagement for this application, and in conversations with the applicant decided to remove the request to add to increase the number from 64 to 118 units. There was some concerns that were raised in the community, and so they felt to take that piece out and to only go forward with just the request to add the access piece to into the appendix. And it's important to note that this application does not look at the detailed site layout as far as how the building will be placed, and the stormwater management, as well as the septic system. Those will all be reviewed in detail at the building permit stage, which there is currently a permit in for that's under review by staff. Now, this is just to give you a little bit of an idea of the site. The applicant does have a more up-to-date site plan that they will share in part of yours. This one shows 85 units. This is more just to illustrate kind of where that access piece will show and kind of how it goes between the two properties. So as we can see here that the arrow pointing to it, part of the access is on the PID 403-6565, and then a portion on the 505 Lucasville Road. In terms of engagement, the level of engagement completed was consultation achieved through a mail-out notification. As mentioned, the subject property is located within an African Nova Scotia community, and planning determined that it was appropriate to increase that notification area from the standard 160 meters that we have in our administrative order. A total of 219 notifications were mailed out, and 46 residents reached out over the course of the application, either through phone or email to myself. And the HRM website for this application had a total of 317 unique views as of writing the staff report. And then as of January 31st, I did do a double check, and that number had increased to 391 unique views. So in terms of public engagement, I just want to say that what I'm showing here on the screen is a small snippet of the engagement feedback that we did receive throughout this application. The staff report does include the full list of kind of all the feedback we heard. I had kind of picked out here some of the important feedback that we had heard multiple times throughout the engagement I thought to share. So some of the concerns that were raised were concerns regarding the proposed scale of the development and the impact to an African Nova Scotian community. concerns regarding the lack of transit, sidewalks, bike lanes, and current traffic conditions within the community, concerns regarding the lack of a secondary access, clarifications regarding the approval Appendix A1 and permit approvals for this property. And then again, there were some questions by residents related to the site layout of the proposal, which, as mentioned, those details will be reviewed at the permitting stage. So in terms of staff's analysis regarding this application, it was brought to staff's attention, as mentioned, that 64 units for 505 Lucasville Road was incorrectly identified within the appendix. Staff completed a detailed review of the matter, including a review of the development and building permits issued for this development, and concluded that a clerical error was made and PID 403-06565 should be included as access only to the development at 505 Lucasville Road. And with that, the staff recommendation is that Northwest Community Council approve the proposed land use bylaw text amendment as outlined in the staff report. Thank you, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Members of the Northwest Council, do you have any questions of clarification? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for the presentation. With this amendment, is there any planning to add to the capacity of the development in terms of units? You mentioned there was going to be reduced, I guess, from 118 to 64. So once this amendment is passed, is there going to be any future additions to the unit total?
Through the chair to the councillor. So that's correct. The original request was to correct the number of maximum units that was permitted at 505 from 64 to 118. As mentioned, the applicant has decided not to go forward with that request and stick with the 64 that is indicated in the appendix. 64 is the maximum number of units that would be permitted through that Appendix A1 through the as-of-right permitting process. And then it's important to note that this amendment here tonight is just for access. It doesn't give any additional rights in terms of additional units on that property. If for a senior citizen housing use, those are just for 505 Lucasville Road. So all of the requirements in the MU1 zone will be reviewed at permitting as far as lot coverage, setbacks, building height. This is only for the access. There's no additional requests for units or building footprint by having this parcel be included as access.
Okay, so one more. Do I still have time? Yeah, so one more additional question, Jessica. So are there any environmental or wastewater issues with this development amendment?
Through the chair to the councillor. Not that I'm aware of at the moment. However, with that said, as mentioned, this is just for the text amendment to add this as access. Those details such as stormwater management, grade, lot grading, the layout of the site, the septic will all be done at the permitting stage through the as-of-right process. There is a permit currently under review for a building permit. There is a revised grade alteration permit that's currently in with staff right now. That includes a review of the stormwater to ensure that the pre and post stormwater are balanced as part of that. In terms of the septic, those approvals come from the Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Change, and through the processing permit, staff will be looking for confirmation that they have received all the proper approvals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, Jess, if I'm understanding correctly, then were it not for the particular PID that's being added to the appendix just for the purposes of access, with the number now no longer changing, this would have been an as-of-right development absent that particular piece?
Through the chair of the councillor, that is correct. And even going forward tonight, regardless of the decision here tonight at Community Council, the 64 maximum unit is still within the appendix, and the developer can come forward for a maximum of 64 units on that property.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. I see no other names on the list. May I ask a question from the chair? Thank you. Jessica, the egress that this will allow, it is just moving the driveway, is that correct? And what would it do in terms of changing, would there be green space now in front of the building, but if it didn't happen, you'd have sort of a driveway in the front of the building?
Yeah, so I'm sharing my screen again. This might be helpful. Again, the applicant does have a more updated site plan that they can share. But if we look at this, so right now, we can you see? Yes, we can. So the driveway, if this amendment goes in tonight, will be located here in the adjacent pit and will come down and be shared between the two properties. If the amendment tonight does not go forward, then the developer will design their site to have the access just over here. So it'll be just shifted from here to here. When the applicant does share their site plan, you'll see that this building here has gotten shorter. There's a larger green space that's proposed right here. So larger green space will get chipped away at, as the driveway would have to now come through there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So we will now open the public hearing. And we'll invite the applicant to come forward. And the applicant has 10 minutes. And we'll welcome Monica Sweetapple with Mode Architecture Incorporated. You have 10 minutes, and then some members of Northwest may ask you some questions of clarification. So, welcome.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Northwest Community Council.
Excuse me, Monica, we're just going to wait a second till we get up on the screen for everyone.
Okay.
Awesome. There you go. Thank you.
Once again, good evening, Chair and members of the Northwest Community Council. The planning official has provided a summary of the amendment request, but it's a text only, the written only. What I'd like to present tonight is an explanation of what it physically means by being able to share the driveway. So as mentioned, Monica Sweetapple with Mode Architecture, and we've been working on this project for a few years now, and we're now at the point we've submitted building permit drawings as well. But you'll see, I think it's explained. It might get a little repetitive, but here's clearly the two sites. I'm calling it a front site, a street site, and the back lot. And as was described before, it was an MU1 zone. We had 118 units building permit approved. The bylaws changed, and we were no longer permitted to do senior housing, but an amendment was made to include those properties that had already had development agreements, permits. So those properties were added to the amendment, Appendix A1. As mentioned, we have made a conscious decision not to proceed with an amendment to revert to the agreed 118 units. We are going forward. Our design, all our drawings represent 64 units only. So the request is to add PID 403-065-65 for access only. So that's that long strip between the two sites, and that's what's called a flag lot. And the back lot has its flag on Lucasville Road. So this is the space we want to share. This was the design, the site plan from 2023, the 118 units. And what I'd like to point out here is that we did have a shared driveway for this large C-shape footprint. There was a shared driveway between both lots. As a matter of fact, this shows the driveway, the shared driveway was fully on the back lot property. So this was we had a shared driveway. We had parking at the front of our building and one access to the street. So currently our drawings actually show the two accesses because that's what we're allowed build. You'll see there's a first driveway to the apartment building, so that's the one that takes the curve to go around the other flag site. It comes in through the front of the apartment building lot and is entirely on the apartment building lot. So then in the future, we will have to add a second driveway for the back lot. So we'll have two parallel driveways side by side. This is not as safe as having one entrance to the site. Now you have two exits and entrances nearby onto the street. And this, we're not able to get any parking at the front of our building anymore. So this is actually what Jessica had up there was our design before we realized we couldn't share the driveway without the amendment. So we show a shared driveway with lots of parking at the front entrance with our accessible parking at the front. But with the current bylaw, without an amendment, we're not able to do the shared driveway. So, what does this mean to us and to the project? The shared driveway site benefits for our project is parking at the front, having one entrance to both sites, and this is safer at the road. There will be a lot less paving and more green space. And that's it. We really just wanted to emphasize that this is just access only. The reason we want this for our project is so that we have one driveway, not two. We can have parking at the front of our building. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Councillor Gillis, you have a question.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Monica, for the presentation. Just a quick question. Do you have any plans for the rear of the 6565 parcel going?
Not yet. We're exploring what could possibly put there. It's actually has a new zoning now, MUB, I think. No, not MU. MUCB? MU. Oh, okay. I saw something on a future land use bylaw. So we're exploring what could be there. I think right now it's just it definitely won't be an apartment building. That's not permitted. Some form of commercial. Yeah.
Okay. We learned this afternoon that potentially Lucasville could get a bus in the future. Any plans to put a transit stop out front on Lucasville Road?
Oh, that would be gladly anticipated, expected, and appropriate at the site. I don't know if you noticed, but at the front of the site, we've left a lot of green space. We've pushed the building back off the street, and that's intentional. So perhaps that there could be bus stop, sidewalk, mailboxes, that there would be some kind of opportunity for the city to put in an off.
A little
Yes, thank you.
transit pad.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very kindly.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gillis. Councillor Young?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Monica, so I'm going back to the commercial part of it, the commercial in the back site, through the access of this amendment, if you get this amendment. Do you have any idea what the proposed commercial would be? What type of commercial development that would be?
The owner has been focused on this front project, and whatever might happen at the back is definitely a future development.
So it would be commercial and it wouldn't be residential again?
No, I think under the zoning now, up to 2 units are permitted. Up to 2 units would be permitted, that's it.
Okay, I still have time. So the one way in and one way out. So you're saying with this access, you'll have a way in and a way out, but isn't it still going to be the same road off of Lucasville Road?
No, because the apartment, the seniors apartment building has to have its own two-way street driveway,
Right.
but then the back lot has to have its own independent driveway. So there'll be a driveway per lot for each lot. So 2 driveways.
So would there be a median in between the driveways? You're saying it's
Yes,
two
where
driveways?
they meet. Yes, we'll
Yeah.
have to put yes, it'll be like a boulevard, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a little bit of time. So is there any appetite for the developer to include strategically in the future? Because as Councilor Gillis mentioned, there could be future transit in Lucasville. There's also a future potential for a multi-use pathway. So would the developer have any appetite in helping to enhance the community by participating in I'm looking for words here, adding to the infrastructure in the community that would benefit the multi-use pathway itself?
Absolutely. They've had some discussions. They've been to community meetings a few years ago and have been asking, what can we do in this project on our site that might contribute to some benefits in the community? And we just mentioned a few of them, but definitely open to if there's something more that can be done as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Thank you, Monica. I don't see any. Oh, Councillor St. Amand has got a question.
I'm worried. I'm wondering whether or not
Monica, if you could come back, please. Sorry.
I'm wondering whether or not staff has presented some of the plans, like the Greenway or future plans around where connectivity opportunities may exist, such that you could plan for those connections at this stage, or are they far enough along that there's an opportunity for you to plan for those connections?
We have not seen any of these future plans, but definitely could be interested to have a look to see if there is any connectivity through this site, this property. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we haven't.
Okay. Yeah. Above all, I'd be interested in trying to ensure that there's an opportunity to coordinate timing and effort in order to better plug in the infrastructure, so that if there is an opportunity for your development to complement what may be coming in the future, that it would make a little bit more sense to ensure that you've got line of sight on that as early as possible.
Yes, we should see what some of the plans are, definitely. But I think we've left so much of the site open, so much green space, not a huge development for the size of the lot. So anyway, we can kind of
Right. So you have some
contribute.
Flexibility, but you're also
Yes.
open to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, especially if we only have one driveway, we have more flexibility at the front of that site. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Thank you very much, Monica. We'll now go to our speakers list. We have 12 speakers thus far. And when speakers are members of the public will be given 5 minutes to address the topic. When I call your name, you can come up to the microphone. The first 3 speakers are Stuart Lucas, then Deborah Lucas, and then Angie Emerson Downey. Welcome, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. You can hear me? Okay, well, good. Okay, good evening, Chair and members of the Northwest Community Council. My name is Stuart Lucas, and I'm a lifelong resident of Lucasville. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to respectively ask Council to refuse the proposed amendment related to 505 Lucasville Road, specifically the request to add an adjacent parcel to secure access. At the outset, I recognize that many of the circumstances leading to this amendment predate the current council, and I appreciate that you are being asked to address an inherited situation. This request is not about opposing housing. It is about process, precedent, public safety, and council's responsibility under the municipal planning strategy. I will focus on 5 points. First point is that this proposal reflects a loss of entitlement, not a policy change. The original development approval was time limited and required steps were not completed within that period. As a result, the entitlement to proceed as originally proposed expired by operation of the planning framework. This amendment is therefore not driven by a change in public policy, but by the need to address that expired entitlement. Planning amendments are meant to implement sound planning objectives, not to retroactively correct missed timelines or zoning gaps for a single applicant. As for why this amendment is before you now, as documented in the staff report, earlier Halifax charter conditions were not met, which means the previously approved non-conforming entitlement no longer applies, and the development must rely on the current land use bylaw. While the applicant is now pursuing a reduced proposal of 64 units under Appendix A1, the access required for that development is not currently permitted under the bylaw. This is why that is a discretionary amendment. That is why a discretionary amendment is required today. My second point is that council has full authority to refuse this amendment. For the reasons that I'll share here, the proposed amendment does not reasonably carry out the intent of the municipal planning strategy, particularly where key planning, safety, and community considerations remain unresolved. Policy P137 requires that these matters be resolved before an amendment proceeds. The staff report documents unresolved concerns related to access, infrastructure, environmental impacts, and community effects. Council is not obligated to approve an amendment simply because it is requested. The third point, emergency access concerns are acknowledged, but they are deferred. Emergency access is identified in the staff report, but its resolution is deferred to a later stage. Emergency access is not a detail that should be deferred. If it cannot be demonstrated at the amendment stage, the amendment should not proceed. Deferring emergency access shifts unresolved risks from the applicant to the municipality. Fourth, impacts on Lucasville to African Nova Scotian community remain unresolved. Lucasville is a historic African Nova Scotia community, and council has committed to respecting community-led planning and engagement through ANZCAP. In this case, heritage and community impacts are acknowledged but unresolved, while the amendment moves forward anyway. Refusing this amendment ensures development proceeds with proper engagements and transparency. To provide some brief context, I am from Lucasville. I grew up there, and my family has lived in the community for generations. I raise that issue only to say Lucasville has endured hardship and decisions made without its voice, and has survived because people protected its future carefully. This decision deserves the same care from you. Final point is on precedent. If council approves an amendment where access and safety issues remain unresolved, future applicants will reasonably expect the same accommodation. In that sense, the amendment does not carry out the intent of the municipal planning strategy because it lowers the threshold for future amendments by allowing unresolved issues to be deferred. In closing, refusing this amendment does not prevent future development. It simply requires that access, infrastructure, environmental, and community concerns be resolved before land use permissions are expanded. This is the vote for reasonable planning, for public safety, and respect for historic community. Council has clear authority and clear policy grounds to refuse. I respectfully ask you to do so. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas. Our next speaker is Deborah Lucas, and then Angie Emerson Downey, and then Rodney Parsons.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Lucas, and I am the chair of the Lucasville Community Association. And I have lived in Lucasville in a home that is over 100 years old. My house has been noted as a heritage property and is located less than 100 meters from the proposed development at 505 Lucasville Road. This home is not just a building, it represents generations of history, family, and connection to this land. Once the character of a place is changed, it cannot be undone, and the impact on the nearby heritage property is permanent. The scale of this proposed development is completely out of character with the surrounding area. A multi-use apartment building placed this close to a heritage home changes the visual, environmental, and cultural context of the site. Noise, lighting, traffic, and increased activity will directly affect the livability and integrity of my property. Lucasville is an African Nova Scotian community with deep roots. Heritage here is not limited to homes that already have formerly heritage status. These are countless heritage properties and sites in this community that have been identified by residents, but have not yet been officially designated. That history still matters. HRM would know this if staff had attended any of the community meetings that have been taking place, or if there had been meaningful public participation with the community. There was no survey, there were no public sessions to talk about the proposed development or this amendment. Once again, it feels like our community has been forgotten. I am so deeply concerned about the lack of infrastructure in Lucasville. There are no sidewalks and no public transportation. I cannot walk safely to my mailbox. This is the reality for many residents here. Adding more development before addressing these basic needs puts people at risk. These proposals is described as seniors housing, but it does not guarantee seniors will live there. In practice, it functions as apartment buildings. That brings increased traffic, lighting, and noise, all of which directly impact nearby homes, including the heritage properties like mine. This type of development does not fit with the policies that are meant to guide growth in a safe and responsible way. These policies require appropriate infrastructure, safe access, and capability with the surrounding community. None of these conditions exist here. Once approved, like this grant, if this is granted, the impact cannot be undone. The protection of heritage, safety, and community matters deserve more than care that this amendment allows. I respectfully ask Council to refuse this amendment, or at least defer it until the impacts on heritage, infrastructure, and community safely are fully and properly considered with real community participation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Angie Emerson Downey, then Rodney Parsons, and then Iris Drummond. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair, Councilors. My name is Angela Downey. I am a resident of Lucasville. I previously spoke in 2023 during the extension hearing. At this time, I want to raise concerns about the lack of infrastructure in Lucasville, including no sidewalks, no public transit, and the limited accessibility out of our community. These concerns still remain today. What I did not realize then is that the concern I raised are directly tied to the requirements of the policy P39 and policy P137. These policies are clear that housing considered under this framework must be supported by adequate infrastructure, services, road networks, that development should only be proceeded where those conditions exist. Through the permit extension process, a total of 2,217 units were enabled access across the municipality. Out of those developments fall within the African Nova Scotia heritage communities, one of which was Lucasville. That alone should have triggered a focus to review, but it did not. Policy 39 requires senior-oriented housing to locate where there is access to community services, facilities, where the surrounding infrastructure can safely support residents. Policy P137 requires consideration whether the road networks and services are adequate to accommodate and anticipate demands created by this development. Lucasville did not meet any of those requirements. There are no sidewalks, no public transit, and no nearby community facilities that seniors can safely walk to. There is only one way in and out of the community, which raised serious concerns during emergency access. There are small gaps. There are fundamental safety and infrastructure issues. I work in long-term care. I know that housing cannot be separated from the system that supports it. A building alone does not create safe communities. Infrastructure, access, emergency services, and nearby facilities must come first. This proposal is often described as senior housing, but under HRM policy, housing can be designated for seniors without requiring seniors to live in them. There is no guarantee that this building will house seniors. In reality, it will be a multifunctional unit apartment building. If this does not house only seniors, then it borders impacts and will have to be addressed. Families bringing additional traffic, additional services demands on and impacts on our schools and our community facilities. Lucasville does not have the capacity to absorb this. Lucasville, as you have previously heard, is an African Nova Scotia community that has been working with ANSCAP over 2 years on our community planning and visioning. Approving this amendment without addressing these gaps undermines the work and places development ahead of safety and infrastructure and fairness. I'm asking Council to refuse this amendment, or at the very least defer it and direct staff to prepare a detailed report on how this permit was approved under this policy of P39 and P317 or P137, and whether the conditions in Lucasville where the property, it should be considered, particularly given the heritage community. On this opportunity, we would like it to either slow down, take focus, and let's get this right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Rodney Parsons, and then Irish Drummond, and then Bruce Bartow. The middle seat is yours, sir.
Good evening. My name's Rodney Parsons. I grew up in Lucasville, and thank you for allowing me to say a few words. In regards to why we are here, I think, and I know most of us here would agree that an apartment building being allowed in the community right now, right into the middle of the community, is unacceptable. No one, to my knowledge, approached the community to even ask what we thought of this apartment building. We are a heritage Black community which have a lot of roots. I grew up in Lucasville as a kid, watched my dad build a church that is still there on the hill in 1964. Still remains as a beacon on the hill. Now, I'm not against development. I think, the community needs some development. But there are people in the community that own land which have trouble trying to get it developed. And the road cannot handle the traffic that's on there now. It's already congested. Kingswood North comes out. You have Saffel Drive. You have Hammonds Plains. All is basically a drive-through. You know, the new development that's happening at the end of Lucasville Road, I'm not sure why everything from that development is going to be coming out onto the Lucasville Road. And there's just too much traffic, way too much traffic. And I think there's like 400 units. I may be mistaken, but why would all this development be allowed, you know, to come on the Lucasville Road? I think it was very poorly planned, in my view. Now, if any of you here on council were aware of such a development right in the middle of your community where you live, it would probably be a no to this type of development. And another thing, why is it that Lucasville could never get a bus? Now, I heard somebody say we might be getting a bus. Is that true? We have the bus at either end of the road. We have it at Saffel Drive. We have at the end of Lucasville or Hammonds Plains, but never through the Lucasville Road. I guess, you know, I guess we weren't worthy of that privilege. Finally, I'd like to say that I heard there is a greenway possibly coming with sidewalks, which is overdue. And I think, you know, more so is that the people of Lucasville should be shown some respect in regards to the residents. Let them have a say in what kind of development should be or not be allowed in the community. My son and I built a new home together last year in Lucasville on my dad's land, and now my wife and I are building one next door. We're coming back home, I guess you call it, and I have my grandkids, which will be next door, and you know, I want to leave a legacy for them, and you know, it's we're building on my dad's land, William Parsons Lane, and so for me, I just think that the development should not go. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Councillor Young has a question for you, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rodney, for coming in. You mentioned that you think that the community should have a say for the future and current development. I think that is part of what the ANSCAP is doing through Devin Parsons and his group, the Lucasville Vision Committee. So I agree with you on that. The community should have a say, but I think that that's in the process stages with the ANSCAP.
Yeah, so that's very welcomed for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Iris Drummond, then Bruce Bartow, and then Walter Reagan.
Good evening, Madam Chair and councillors. I feel like throwing this paper away and just speaking straight out. I've lived in Lucasville for almost 49 years now, and I added it up today. I've lived there longer than I've lived. And I'm an elder there. That's what I am now, believe it or not a young girl anymore. But I volunteered for many years for my community, and it is my community. My husband is a part of community. He is a man born of the Moses Oliver and the James Lucas clans, which are where Lucasville actually is derived from one of those gentlemen. And I'm proud of it. And I really was, and I will say it, I'm a privileged white lady that moved into a black community. And I was like a fly in the wall. I saw things that sickened me through our government. The lack of care, the racism, the marginalism. I mean, when we started the association, the first thing we fought for was 50% land that was stolen from us, and we got 100% back. We are not that part of Hammonds Plains anymore, and that's why I ask you, when you have it here, Beaver Bank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville, are you sure this meeting tonight is referring to Lucasville community? I don't see them anywhere, only in the address that you're talking about. But when you watched and spent a few decades watching a community never grow, it's held back, and yet you see it grow going either end or up the old Sackville Road. Lucasville is still where it's at. If any improvements that's there, it's the residents that's improved it. And I see this coming in, and if it is changing this MU1 to an MUB, I say no. We fought for years to keep MUB out of the back door and coming in and making a precedent that other developers may use it down the road. We like our road as it is. We do not want industrial coming in. I don't want to see an Irving garage across from me looking at it. We don't want to see those things. Our community is a community. It's a family community. And we're fighting like the sidewalks and the transit and the biking paths. They are going to come because I'm going to count on you, council, to vote them in and make sure it happens, because there's no need for seniors or children or anybody in that community be penalized from having a quality life of being able to go and do things and not be able to do it because there isn't a bus there or there isn't an access bus to pick someone up like outside of our community. Our quality of life, believe me, and I'll tell you, I've watched it. You haven't lived there, but I have. And it just didn't start a few decades ago. This here has marginalization, where with racism and everything, it's been started nearly over 200 years ago, and it's still alive and well. I ask and I oppose that this here development be deterred until our infrastructure and our community is brought up to the level that is living on either end of us. Because it's not only us, I see other communities that they're becoming nothing but asphalt and cement. I thank you, and I shouldn't have said I thank you. I'll thank you when this goes to council, when I see who's voting. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bruce Bartow, then Walter Regan, and then Andy Langell.
Good evening, Madam Chair, honorable members of the Northwest Community Council. Thank you for this opportunity to provide some input into this obviously very passionate matter. of the proposed development on 505 Lucasville Road in the adjoining PID. I was rather surprised earlier hearing that the developer has been working on this for several years now, and yet, as you've heard throughout some of these presentations, there's been very little community consultation during the process, and very limited in extent and the ability to engage the public of the Lucasville community. My name is Bruce Bartow. I was born in Annapolis Royal in Nova Scotia, in close proximity to Fort Anne and Port Royal National Historic Sites. And I fully appreciate and cherish the rich history, the diversity, and the pride which we have in our community. Nurtured for over 400 years with the European settlement, and then, of course, with the long original residence of Mi'kma'ki. I completed my early education there before I enrolled in the Canadian Armed Forces. I attended the Royal Military College in Kingston, Ontario, and I've been a proud Army officer for 42 years of full-time service across our country, as well as a dozen years in my home province and numerous deployments outside the country. My wife and I moved to Lucasville some 10 years ago after I retired, and I appreciate the pride in the history of the area, the richness of the community and the neighborhood. And although a recent resident, I'm still a proud member of Lucasville. And we look forward in next year, 2027, to celebrating 200 years as a Black heritage community. I've not only enjoyed living here, but I've become an engaged member of the community. This past fall, the mayor, Andy Fillmore, hosted a local community gathering, and in attendance were two of the councillors that are sitting here today from districts 14 and 15. So His Honor, John Young and Billy Gillis heard a number of passionate presentations by local folks in the community in the area. They love their communities, and they are passionate about making them better. It was a clear message that busier does not necessarily mean better. There were strong emotional messages of the need to address the issues, the emergency egress routes, which have come up to several people. Also underscored was the continued unchecked development without addressing road priorities is not something that has any degree of level of support. To put a fine point in the matter, myself, and if you've heard many of the previous presenters, don't oppose housing resources being increased. We appreciate that the country, the province, the HRM of which we are part, is in dire strait in need of additional housing. However, doing that with a multi-unit development will not enhance our community. It's well known by residents and should be appreciated by others who travel the Lucasville Road as commuters that it's already over capacity on the infrastructure to handle what we currently have. Adding another multi-unit development will do nothing to improve that. So unchecked development will certainly not be a friend. In summary, we don't oppose the development, but and any such increase should only be approved, though, after critical infrastructure improvements have made, because increased traffic, degradation to the environment, and negative impact on the community are things that really, as been mentioned before, and I think it's B 137 policy, all require that those things are supposed to be addressed, and they really don't appear to have been fully and comprehensively addressed. So the bottom line is that I appreciate what's been going on so far, but I think it's time to sit back, have a good hard look at what's been approved, what is reasonable to approve, and what's reasonable to develop on the site that it is now, without the infrastructure, without the stuff happening that will negatively impact our community. Thank you very much for your time, for your careful attention to our points, and for your sage consideration of the way ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartow. And on behalf of my colleagues, we would also like to express a sincere appreciation for your service. Mr. Walter Reagan, Andy Langell, and then Dean Lucas.
Good evening. My name is Walter Reagan. I'm the past president of the Sackville Rivers Association. Tonight we have 4 concerns that could be answered or appreciated by staff. We're very concerned that slate is very close to the top of the soil, and we hope the appropriate slate reduction, and especially with acid slate if it's present, would be handled by the province. And should
Excuse me, Mr. Reagan, and I apologize. Is this for the public hearing, or were you speaking for the public participation, which will be later on the agenda?
No, this is about this project.
Oh, it is about this project. Thank you. My apologies.
No, acid slate or slate is very close to the topsoil. We're very concerned this will be a large sewage treatment plant, and will it be able to control runoff not onto neighboring properties? Also, will the new building in the back, if it's ever built, be hooked up to this plant or be its own sewer treatment plant? It would be very helpful if the proponent would come forward and build the Lucasville Greenway in front with bus layoffs, because even though this is a seniors building, I suspect young families may move in and will have children who will have to be picked up by school bus. And we heard very good news tonight, or possibly there's a bus in the future, so a bus layaway would be very helpful in this area. Again, I hope my concerns can be addressed, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter, and my apologies for interrupting. Andy Langell, Dean Lucas, and then John, and my apologies, I cannot make out the last name. Andy Langell.
Good evening, Council. My name's Dean Lucas. Andy is my partner. She just signed her name. She thought it was kind of a sign-in book. So she's not going to be speaking, but I will. My talk's on is going to be as technical as everyone else's. They do amazing, diligent work to be able to look into things, to find out what should be passed, what shouldn't, what things should be put in place before we make moves on things. But I'm here to kind of talk about Lucasville. Being a Lucas, when I was a kid, I grew up in the house that my father grew up in with a lot of siblings, and we had our grandfather and grandmother living next to us, and my great-grandmother living next to us there. So our community is something that I hold dear to my heart. I don't live there anymore. My parents don't. They were divorced and sold the house. But I look back at the things that have happened in our community when I was a kid. I used to be able to walk up and down the road after school to be able to play basketball with my friends and be in the neighborhood. We can't do that anymore. We have large trucks going up and down the street where it's just not safe like it used to be. We don't have a lot of youth within our communities anymore, and it's because I feel like things weren't put in place to be able to raise families there. People are going where there's other resources now. I feel like one of the big things that I wish could be addressed is why can't we just do the right things when it comes to building properties within our communities, to be able to talk with the communities about what's going in place before they happen. Getting community input. We have a large population increase that came to Nova Scotia. Lucasville didn't have any part or any say in that, but now we're receiving the brunt of it by having these large apartment buildings that are being built into our communities without the resources being in place. When you have one large street, it was bad back in the day with people speeding up and down it, and now it's almost, it would basically be a thoroughfare highway almost, with the amount of cars that go through. With the amount of large trucks that are going through now, it's just not the same as it used to be. It's tough. It's tough to sit here and see the changes that are happening within our communities without much of our say. I know that John had mentioned that things were discussed with the vision community, and those things are being in place and progressing. But these things are happening now. So once they are in place, my biggest worry is what will change afterwards, because we've seen so many things happen within our communities that were either promised or we're told were going to happen, and then they happened in a different way, or they didn't happen at all. Like the proposal for seniors in the apartments, there's no guarantee on that I'm aware of. If people are moving in with a lot of roommates, or they're moving in with a lot of family members, especially if they're younger kids, there's going to be a lot more cars that are coming into our neighborhood that we currently can't sustain. So I currently live in Herring Cove, and I see what's happening out there with the traffic. There's nothing in place to be able to give us any reprieve to what's happening. And it seems like there's a lot of congestion where things are getting worse. And I can see that happening in Lucasville, where it's just going to be put there, and then the residents are going to have to deal with it, and it won't be able to be changed because it's already there. And I think that it's something that needs to be taken a look at before we start moving on with bigger developments that may be coming in the future. If we can't get this one right before it takes place, then like what stops us from having other ones come in with other things that we oppose, that are just coming into our neighborhoods where we have no say. We were forgotten. We don't have sidewalks. There wasn't many improvements to our neighborhoods. Now it's like, okay, well, we're getting other people coming in, so now we can do these improvements. It's like, where were they at before? Where was the care about our communities before and making things safe when it was just us there? Now we have others coming in, and it's like, yeah, let's put these things in place. It's not a great feeling to have that done when it should have been there in the first place. So thanks for your time. I just wanted to voice my opinion on my thoughts of everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is John. The last name starts with the letter P. I apologize, I couldn't make out the penmanship. Is there a John here? And then next is Natasha Lucas, and then Devin Parsons. Natasha, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm a Lucas from Lucasville. I recently moved back from being away in Ontario. I moved back in 2022. I have a daughter that's 8 years old, and part of the reason of moving back to Lucasville is so that my daughter would be able to grow up in the community that I grew up in. She attends the community center on Lucasville Road quite frequently for events, and also a tutoring program that the community is currently able to sustain, but it is at capacity. I'd also like to note that I live adjacent to the parcel in question. Across from me is Deborah Lucas, and she has 2 grandchildren who are my daughter's age. My daughter currently, because of traffic, is not even able to cross the street to go visit her cousins. In the mornings, if I need to leave, traffic is so congested that I'm not able to turn left. There are times that I need to turn right, go down to the end of the Sackville Drive, and turn around to go back up to Lucasville Road. Across from me, there's also a gym, which is connecting to the adjacent parcel that is in question. And they run programs for martial arts. If I am trying to leave at 7 o'clock when everything is coming out, it's absolutely impossible. I cannot imagine if 64 units are there built on that adjacent parcel. It's my understanding that the owner of those 2 parcels, while they may be different companies, they are associated companies. I believe that an easement could be put through and restrict it to those 64 units. I think if they adjoin those two parcels, there's nothing preventing them from adding additional apartment buildings, because then that parcel becomes one. My concern, which is also echoed by other people that have spoke here tonight, is there's no guarantee that that housing is going to be designated for seniors. So essentially they could put 4-bedroom units in those apartment buildings. They have 64 units that have been approved. 4-bedroom units, I believe that's what, 200 and something units. And especially if people had more roommates or multiple children, we don't have the capacity. My daughter goes to Sackville Heights. The school doesn't have the capacity. Currently, all children above grade 3 are in outdoor container units because the school is at capacity. I understand that, this isn't to deny the permit of building, but if we allow them to expand the area, they're going to develop that area and going to increase perhaps the size of that 64 units. There's no guarantee, as I said, that it's going to go to seniors. The developers haven't consulted the community with respect to the concerns. I also am concerned about the runoff water, the sewer. I want my community to stay for what I moved back for. I want my daughter to be able to continue to use her community center. I want my daughter to not have to get bused an hour away from school because the school's at capacity. I would like to be able to walk down the road. But we don't have those services in place. We don't have a bus. My daughter's best friend lives 2 houses down. She's not able to walk because of all the trucks that we have. At this time, increasing plot sizes for developers that are there for profit is not in the community's best interest. So I respectfully ask council to deny the amalgamation of the 2 PIDs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last registered speaker is Devin Parsons.
Good evening, Chair and Councilors. Thanks for your time this evening. I just want to say happy birthday to my daughter, Naya. Love you. Beckett, love you too. I'm here to speak about the proposed amendment before you tonight, but I believe it's important to give some context. There's more to the situation. I put together a 20-page document that I submitted to Council. Hopefully we'll refer to that later if this goes to a review board. I'm formally requesting that this amendment be refused or deferred and that the staff be directed to prepare a supplementary or focused report examining whether this permit should exist at all. I feel like we're in a little bit over our heads here, and I don't really know how we got here. The whole reason I joined my community council was because I saw a hearing a few years ago where these blanket approval for this development was approved, which covered 2,217 units across Beaver Bank, Sackville, and Hammonds Plains, a lot of them which have been already developed. Those ones that have been developed have, as some people who travel at Beaver Bank will know, those are not actually seniors housing, and those are just families or anyone living there, and that's what this is going to be. There's no connection between the seniors housing and the occupancy, and that's why seniors housing was removed from the bylaws. So I don't know why we keep saying seniors housing, because it's actually not. So this permit was extended with over 2,217 in total, but of all of those units, only 2 developments, a 64 unit from the applicant and a 4 unit from a resident, also my father, were in African Nova Scotian community. So if I had been present at that meeting, I would have stood there and I said, clearly Lucasville should have been carved out of that extension because its development does not align with an intent, assumption, or safeguards of the policy P39, nor does it meet the planning context applied to suburban and heritage communities. So there were supposed to be safeguards in place for senior citizen housing, and some of those safeguards would be sidewalks, proximity to community, community infrastructure. So, for example, in the staff report, they noted there was a 0.3 kilometer community center within 0.3 kilometers. But the thing is, you can't get there on foot because we have no sidewalks. So it's a little bit irrelevant. They also noted in the staff report that this wouldn't affect school capacity, but that is the assumption that this is seniors housing, which it is not. So therefore, we need to look at actually what's going to happen and how it's actually going to affect the community. I was born and raised in Lucasville. My family's here, my children are here, and hopefully I'll build a house for them one day and they'll stay here. And if they move away, they move away, but at least I'll have it for them. The other thing I wanted to mention was the public participation. The only reason anyone even knows about this is because the community got together and we put meetings together. It was sent out to, I think, 300 residents, but that's less than 25% of the total population of Lucasville. And you could say that they already extended the radius, but they extended the radius to an area that relies on that one road. So everyone that's on that road needs to be informed. So that's over, between 500 and 750 residents. So I just want to say also, we're not against development, but it needs to be with community and not exploiting the community. We've been working with the African Nova Scotian Community Action Planning program for a few years now, and hopefully that will be in place soon. But until then, we need to take a pause and we need to make sure that things are done right, because once you build a building, you can't tear it down. Well, you can, but I don't think it's going to happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That is the entire list of speakers who have signed up. But now ask 3 times, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? Welcome. So, Deborah, we just need you to say your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Deborah Emerson. I'm a lifelong member of Lucasville. I also, with my grandchildren, we will be 7 generations on that historic African Nova Scotian land. And to have development happen in a community that has been established for over 200 years and that have suffered, that have been disparaged, a community that basically, you heard people say racism has existed. We didn't get the benefits or the services that we deserved at the time. And now to have somebody come in, or anybody to come in, and I do mean council as well, as giving permits out to a community without having the community's input, without considering the community and how it's going to be affected. You heard them say we have over 10,000 cars going up and down what's essentially a cart path, a road that has been built 200 years ago Basically, it's never been improved. It's never had any underpinning to make it appropriate for the amount of cars going through, for the trucks that are going through, because there's development happening at the other end of our community and not benefiting Lucasville at all. And then have different developers come in and say, oh, we're going to build a unit here and possibly do commercial property later. How is that going to impact our community? I know council had talked about and possibly approved Margison Road being built in behind Lucasville to take some of the traffic off of our road. If council wants to develop property in the Lucasville community, before you consider giving out permits, I suggest you develop the Margison Road and have traffic, especially units that are going to cause hundreds and hundreds of more cars to be involved in that community, have them exit or enter someplace else, which I suggest be Margison Road. So I am asking that you defer this permit, that until we have an extra or another way of leaving the community, another path for our cars, and I'm saying path because right now Lucasville is a path, and it's a pathway that's serving 10,000 cars a day. So until we have another pathway or extension for cars to be leaving the community, until we have services such as public transportation, until we have recreational programs in our community that benefit our community, until we have proper systems where our community feels like they're being celebrated and not just used for whatever Thank you. But I just want to say, this is very personal for me. It's very emotional because our community needs to be celebrated. We're an African heritage community. We have been there over 200 years. We deserve to have some respect whenever anything is affecting us or impacting us to this degree. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now ask for the second time. Is there anyone else from the gallery that would like to speak? And then for the third and final time, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? Thank you all. We appreciate that you have come out and spoken here tonight. So seeing that there are no additional speakers now, we can ask the applicant that they have 5 minutes to respond to any points that were raised by the speakers. Monica, would you like to come back?
So we welcome all of the comments about the community, the infrastructure, and it sounds like, you know, there's definite access with buses, sidewalks, traffic, high congestion, and I believe it's felt with the additional 64 units, this is going to have some more impact. To the council, we would like to note that we are permitted to build 64 units currently. And the issue this evening is, can we have a shared easement on our neighboring property? And we weren't really going to talk about the project and the building, but it sounds like the community wants to hear a bit about what the development will be. And I heard a few things that aren't quite correct. So if I could describe a little bit about the development itself. The issues around slate and runoff, we've already had our regrading completed and is with the city for approval and review. We will definitely look after any runoff that's of water that's been going to neighboring sites. Slate will be properly removed if we need to remove some. We're not planning on digging very much at all, actually. And this is going to be a senior-friendly, yes, it's not a senior care home, and it's not mandatory that the tenants have to be seniors. But it is designed to be senior friendly. We're going to have 10 accessible apartment units. All our apartments are 1 or 2 bedroom. There aren't any large 3-4 bedroom apartments, so the population won't be as large as some might think. Also, being senior friendly, it's about accessibility, parking, sufficient parking, and the ability within the unit. We're in the building. We're going to have gym and amenities, party room, outdoor amenities, gardens, and so it's senior friendly, and everything is easily usable. Small things like windows are easily operated. So it is intended to be a seniors apartment complex. It should be noted that there will also be 10 affordable units, and that means that 10 of the units will be 20% below the market value of the area. We are setting the building back from the street to allow for future sidewalk bus stop mailboxes. And when I mentioned potentially a commercial building, that could also include such things as daycare, halls, etc. I don't want anyone to think that there's going to be a gas station at the back. That's probably not going to be considered. Also, the scale and style of the building have been designed to be rural. So we've made it look like smaller townhouses connected, and by bringing it back off the street, the presence of that building is really behind trees. And a couple other things, there was a traffic impact analysis completed, and this project on its own does not have a significant impact on the surrounding transportation network. We hear that there's, overbounding problems to the whole area. We're not expanding the lot. We're only seeking the opportunity to share a driveway. And the Department of Environment has been to the site, and there's no issues or concerns. And we'd add that all engineering has been completed and submitted to building official. The site design includes new grading, drainage routes, there's a reservoir pond, and a septic system. The septic system will clean the effluent before it enters the disbursement field, so these newer systems are much cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Young, you have a question of clarification for Monica?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Monica. So I just want to touch on the sewage treatment plant, the septic system you just mentioned. When Mr. Reagan was up, he also mentioned the sewage treatment with the potential for the commercial development. Is that sewage treatment going to be linked up to that future commercial development, or will it be one separate?
Probably not. It's a separate lot, so it's not likely that whatever happens there, if anything ever happens there at the second lot, it would be likely a separate system. I anticipate. This system would be sized for the 64 units, yeah.
Point of clarification on senior friendly.
Yeah.
That's kind of open.
It is open, and it's designed for seniors.
Okay.
It's not mandatory that it's only usable by seniors. So by being senior friendly, as seniors apartments are defined by the Halifax Regional Municipality.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's not a care facility. No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. We'll now ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Young, a seconder. Councillor St. Amand. All those in favor and close the public hearing, signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Thank you. The motion carries. We'll now, thank you, Monica. We'll now ask staff if they would like to respond to any points that were issued by the speakers. Welcome back, Jessica.
Thank you. Listening through all the speakers here tonight, there's just 2 points that I wanted to provide further clarification on for council. So the property is designated mixed use B and it is zoned mixed use 1. I know when the applicant was speaking, there was that question, so I just wanted to clarify. In terms of future development on the property that's subject to this application, so the property for the access. So future development will have to meet the permitted uses that are in the zone today. So those are the uses in the MU1 zone. And it does further limit any size of a commercial use to 2,000 square feet. The other point I just wanted to make was that there was some discussion about ongoing work within the municipality with the Greenway and connections, and that's being kind of looked at currently. And staff are happy to make those connections with the applicant to the individual staff who are working on those plans to ensure that all those pieces are taken into consideration.
Any questions of clarification for Jessica? Then with your permission, members of Northwest, I have one. Thank you, Jessica. We've heard a lot tonight from the public around the infrastructure concerns, traffic, sidewalks, all of those things. Would it be accurate to say they're not the subject, though, of the motion before us tonight, that it is just the driveway? So we're really, that has already been approved, and so this is just about the driveway. That's the only thing that we're voting on tonight, the text amendment for the driveway?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That is correct. The request in front of council tonight for a decision is to add the PID 403-06565 as access only for the proposed development at 505 Lucasville Road. The amendment in the land use bylaw will be very specific that it is access only. The other concerns raised, while very important to the visioning of the Lucasville community, are not subject to this application here tonight. They are reviewed at the permitting process, and then will also be worked with our African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team as the community creates their future planning strategies.
Thank you. And one other question, there's a lot said about a lack of engagement with the community. Can you speak, please, to the level of engagement that did happen?
Yes.
Or did not happen? Whichever is the case. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So when we have a discretionary plan application, staff look at what the request is being made. We look at other applications of a similar nature that was made. We also look for guidance in what is called the HRM Public Engagement Guidebook to kind of have us determine what level of engagement is satisfactory for that request that has been made. In this case, we looked at the fact that the approval of Appendix A1 has already been approved by Regional Council back in 2023. That approval was there. The 64 units is already in place. The developer is permitted to come in and have their permits for that. Through staff's review and through our review of their guidebook, it was determined that Inform was our level of engagement that was appropriate for this application. This was completed through a mail-out notification that outlined what the request was, what the issued permits were for previously, so how we got here with the appendix and with the correction that's required, as well as mentioned, our administrative order requires that in the rural areas of HRM, that radius be 160 meters. We did significantly, as shown in map 2 as part of the staff report, significantly increase that to ensure that we were getting, reaching the broader community a bit. We also shared the fact sheet with community members as they reached out. We shared it with our African Nova Scotia Community Action Planning team to also share with the community for any residents that did reach out.
Thank you very much. That was my list of questions so far, so I appreciate it. Now, what are the wishes of council? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to put the motion on the floor. I'll do that. The Northwest Community Council adopt the text amendment to Appendix A1 of the Beaverbank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville Land Use Bylaw as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated December 4th, 2025.
Seconded by Councillor Gillis. Thank you. Councillor Young, you have the floor.
Thank you. Even though this is this being as of right, as Jessica mentioned, that 2023 it was already approved. There was a amendment typo in tonight's deliberation and public hearing is about the access amendment for the driveway. There are some concerns in the community about infrastructure capacity, community impacts, traffic congestion. I heard some people talk about schools and family-orientated services. With schools, that usually falls under the HRCE. Design features tailored to aging populations, a scale and a form compatible with surrounding residential development. Some of the report mentioned noise and light pollution. Secondary emergency egress within the community was a concern. Of course, not being targeted for senior citizens. Strain on existing infrastructure and what Mr. Reagan mentioned about the slate at the top of the soil. Traffic increase. As the current counselor for the district, I'm going to have to vote no on this in response to what my residents are saying, and that's how I'm going to be voting on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Any other councillors have question or comment? Nope. Then I think that I will ask our legal counsel. So before us tonight is about the driveway. A lot of the issues that were presented were for the infrastructure. Should this motion pass or not pass, then the development still goes ahead. Is that correct?
So it would be correct to say that regardless of the outcome of this motion, there is an as-of-right senior citizen housing use permitted on the property of 505 Lucasville Road. So, as to the mechanics of how that's accomplished, it is correct the developer could proceed with that use on that property regardless of the outcome of this motion.
Thank you very much. So, the wishes of council, the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Now we'll move on in our agenda to correspondence. Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
Correspondence has been received for item 10.1.1 and circulated to members of Community Council.
Thank you. And petitions. Does anyone have any petitions? And there are no presentations, and we'll now move on to public participation. We didn't have anyone sign up in advance, but we will ask 3 times if there anyone that would like to speak for public participation. Mr. Reagan.
Good evening, Walter Reagan, Sackville Rivers. Is there any update on Feely Lake, Councillor?
Mr. Reagan, if you'd just like to ask your 3 questions and then we'll respond to each. How's that?
Is there any update on the upgrade to the floodplain for the Sackville River? I also like to thank Councillor St. Amand for, I made a phone call. There's a homeless person sleeping on the trail and it was very cold out, so I wish to thank him for getting involved. And is there any movement on the upgrade of the Sackville streetscape? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reagan. Councillor Gillis, would you like to respond? Oh, Councillor Young is buzzed in. Walter, Councillor Young is willing to respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Walter. Feely Lake, hopefully by the end of the month, I'll have an update for you. It's been passed on to staff, and I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. I think Billy or Councillor Gillis can take care of the other ones.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Regan. Update on the Sackville streetscape plan is going to be tied into the suburban plan update, which is going to roll out somewhere around 2028. Somewhere around 2028. That's about all I know. Thank you.
Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to chime in. No thanks necessary for me. I'm the conduit to our staff. The new director of our housing and homeless team is Ashton Stevenson. Absolutely fantastic, and responded to me immediately when I passed on your awareness of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. We'll now move on to reports, 14.1.1. So the Plan App 2023-01594, Development Agreement for 143 and 153 Sackville Drive, Lower Sackville. We don't have any presentation, but Dean McDougall is available for any questions. Pardon? Oh, Dean's not here. Oh, Thea and Jessica are on top. There you go. Councillor Gillis, is this yours?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You want to put the motion on the floor? All right. I move that Northwest Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated December 31st, 2025 for a mixed-use building at 143 and 153 Sackville Drive, Lower Sackville, and schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor St. Amand. Thank you very much. Any comment, Councillor Gillis?
Just a few quick notes here. One, this building is on a transit route. It's close to the Highway 101 and 102 corridors. It's a short walk to the Cobequid terminal. It's walking distance to grocery store and retail. Addresses the need for commercial space in the community at 12,500, and also addresses the need for housing in the community. So I recommend going on to the public hearing.
Thank you very much. You call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. The motion has carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 14.1.2, Plan App 2023-00943, the development agreement for 498 Sackville Drive, Lower Sackville.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I move that Northwest Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated January 2nd, 2026 to permit an 8-story mixed-use building at 498 Sackville Drive and schedule a public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Young, for the second. Councillor Gillis?
Pretty much the same comments as the first one. It's on a transit route. It's between two transit terminals, walking distance to grocery and retail. This addresses the need for housing in the community, and yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Councillor Gillis. We'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. So moving on the agenda, motions, there are none. In camera, there is none. Notices of motion, I don't see any. So the date of the next meeting is March 9th, 2026, and we would ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:50 p.m. Looks like everybody wants to do that. We'll give it to Councillor Young. Thank you, everyone. Safe drive home.